Volume, intensity, fatigue, and just science-based lifting as a whole have probably been some of the biggest topics in the fitness space over the last couple of months. Many creators and individuals have quite, let's just say, differing opinions on these topics, some a lot more extreme than others. Found quite a negative response to science-based lifting, which I thought was pretty funny, so I'll play the clip now.
I'm just gonna say it, science-based lifting is gay. Like, you're either lifting because you love what you're doing and it's fun, or you're just trying to get huge. Look at Ronnie Coleman, look at Kevin Lerone, look at all these great guys. I can't even name not one science-based lifter, because I don't know any, because they're not famous, because they don't look sick.
No, no disrespect to that guy, because he's clearly a lot bigger than I am and will likely ever be in my entire life, but to claim that none of these guys look sick, I don't know about that. But let me let me show you a couple of them and we'll see what you think. So TNF, probably the most popular guy in the science-based lifting community. To me, he looks pretty big. Wouldn't really say he's small and doesn't look sick. Now looking at deadlifts, probably slightly more niche, not as well known, but again, looks pretty good. Pretty sure he's quite young as well. And then Elijah Mundy is absolutely massive. So the claim that science-based lifting doesn't work because none of the guys that use the techniques are like have impressive physiques. Look at them, like, especially when I'm pretty sure that 2 out of the 3 individuals that I just showed you are natural athletes, and I believe, well, I'm gonna hazard a guess that the guy in the original clip is absolutely not natural in any sense. I'd say that's yeah, no, I just found that pretty funny when I saw it. The sort of traditional approach in what a lot of people that went to the gym thought was that the more volume that you do and the harder that you train, it's going to result in more gains. So if you keep upping the amount of sets that you're doing, training to failure, training past failure, that's directly going to equal increased muscle growth, which isn't really the case when we look at modern literature. There was also an idea that you can't do too much, overtraining wasn't a thing, just up your calories and train harder if you can't see any progress and you're going to grow. That's sort of the approach that some of the greatest bodybuilders that we've ever seen used to do. I'm sure many of you have seen that infamous training regime of Rich Piana.
It's basically an 8-hour arm workout, and it's made up of 16 mini workouts every half an hour throughout the day for 8 hours straight.
No, don't get me wrong, doing biceps and triceps for 8 hours does seem pretty sick, and Rich Piana was huge. Like, look at him, he was massive, but he was doing a whole lot of junk volume that you just don't need to do. Like, especially arms, they're muscle groups that you don't need a whole lot of volume for. You could probably get them done in less than an hour. You could do like 2 exercises for biceps, 2 exercises for triceps, two sets each, pushed relatively close to failure, and it's going to be quite hard to get anything better than that. Like, the problem with doing all that extra volume and training really hard on top of that is, yes, you'll create a whole lot of stimulus for muscle growth, which is a good thing, but a byproduct of that is a whole lot of extra fatigue that you're accumulating. So doing this extra volume creates more fatigue that you have to recover from, whereas if you do your arm workouts in less than an hour, your volume is relatively low and you've created enough stimulus for muscle growth, but you've also not accumulated that much fatigue, so it won't impact your next session. If you did that 8-hour bicep and tricep workout, the next time you came to hit arms again, they'd probably still be sore. The chances that you've recovered from all that volume is extremely slim. Whereas you did it in less than an hour, you're done, you did 2 exercises, 2 sets each, you're going to be feeling fine by the next time you come around to hit arms. Likely you're going to see slight increases in your weight, slight increase in your reps, as long as, you know, your diet's on point, your sleep's on point, etc. So it's like, the modern approach is just, you don't need all this junk volume. It also means you don't have to spend 8 hours in a gym. Like, I'm sure some people love to, but you do not need to be spending anywhere near that much time in the gym. Like, just because class greats did it, like Rich Piana, doesn't mean that you need to do it. It's just not how it works. Now, again, I'm sure many of you know Arnold, probably the greatest bodybuilder of all time. Just because he was the greatest bodybuilder of all time doesn't necessarily mean that his approach to training was correct and is what's going to work for most people. Let me show you just a clip of him talking about his volume and different exercises that he would do.
So everyone in a bodybuilding world would say that many sets, to do 35 sets of body part like I did 3 times a week, that was definitely overtraining. Crosses for the striations.
I would use cable crossovers as a finishing exercise.
10, 2 more now, 4 strips, come on.
It's really great for finishing with that pump and working the muscle fibers.
Now, look, I love Arnold, but he's even admitting himself that many people told him that he is overtraining. He was doing 35 sets per week. I think he said 3 times a week as well. Like, any natural athlete, unless you're like a complete outlier, you would never be able to recover from that much volume. And that's what you just need to take into account. Not only was Arnold's genetics 1 in a million.
1 in a million!
He was also obviously enhanced, which makes things completely different. Natural athletes would not be able to do that. And also the idea that you can do cable crossovers to target your chest striations, it's just not how it works. Chest striations and striations in general are to do with how low your body fat levels are. There's no exercise that you can do that will target these. It feels like you can't open a TikTok comment section without saying holy cardio, fatigue maxing, etc. on any video where more than maybe even 5 reps are completed. Now, I did think it was funny at first, but I think it has been dragged quite a bit, and I know a lot of the people in the comment section are just joking, but I've seen some people doing maybe like 10 to 12 reps getting hated on because they're creating way too much fatigue. You shouldn't do 10 to 12 reps, you need to do 4 reps, otherwise you're doing it wrong. Like, that's not how it works. Now, would it be slightly more beneficial for you to stay maybe below that 12 rep range? Maybe I usually go for like 4 to 6 or 7. That's probably my ideal, but as long as you're reaching close enough to failure within maybe even 15 reps would be okay. It's not going to make a noticeable difference. Like, you're not just wrong if you do 12 to 15 reps and you're just going to see no growth. That's just not how it works. But same idea with intensity. Like, the overall sentiment in all this is that you don't need to do the traditional approach of all this crazy amount of volume and training beyond failure, needing all this extra food just to grow. Like, if you stay maybe 1 or 2 max reps shy from failure, as long as you're able to accurately gauge how close and far you are away from failure, then that's probably the best point to be at. And in terms of like a weekly volume number, anywhere from 5 to 10 sets, maybe even slightly higher, it's probably the ideal range where you're going to see good amounts of stimulus for muscle growth and also not accumulate too much fatigue that it's going to affect your ability to progressively overload on a consistent basis. And there's also been a lot of drop set negativity, which I agree with. Like, drop sets used to be a massive thing a couple of years back. TNF, do not think I forgot when you had me and my whole friend group doing a tricep mechanical drop set every single arm day I was in the gym. My grandkids are going to have to pay off the fatigue that you've caused me by doing that. But yeah, drop sets, the idea that nowadays is just don't do them. They're not going to be anywhere near as beneficial as just doing a normal set once you've rested, say 3 to 5 minutes in between. The problem with drop sets is you're just accumulating a whole lot of extra fatigue for not really great levels of stimulus. Just doing a normal straight set is going to create more stimulus than the drop set and not accumulate anywhere near as much fatigue because you're not pushing it past failure. So yeah, no, drop sets, I agree. I wouldn't advise really doing them ever, to be honest. I just want to sort of talk through how I applied these techniques and ideology in my own training. Over the last course of a year, I bulked from around 60 kg up to 85 kg, and then I've recently cut down to around 75 kg, and that's where I'm sat right now. Now, do take into account that muscle memory did play a role in this. It wasn't as if I was brand new to the gym and had never stepped in one before. I had probably around 3 years of training experience before I lost a good amount of my muscle, and then started building up and cutting back down over the last course of a year. So in terms of my volume, I did keep it quite low, but what I'd like to do is prioritize my weaker body parts in most of my workouts. So I'd say probably my chest and my lats were my two weakest muscle groups. So what I did is I always performed them first in my workouts, chest first, followed by lats, and then usually whatever order for my other muscle groups, because they were less important as they weren't as lacking compared to my chest and my lats. So I did them first, and I also did slightly more volume. So for my chest, I did roughly probably around 7 sets per week per muscle group. For my lats, I did around 6 sets per week, and then for all my other body parts, I did probably 4 or 5 sets, I'd say. So yeah, nothing crazy, but just adding that extra set or two for my weaker body parts definitely, I thought, helped me noticeably bring them up a lot. I think in terms of bringing up my chest and lats in comparison to my other muscle groups, they're definitely a lot more balanced than they used to be previously. So when you're looking at that, you might say, oh, so if you just increase your volume, then you're going to bring up these muscle groups. You might as well just do crazy amounts of volume for all of these. But it gets to a point where there's no further benefit, and then you start getting into the negative effects of pushing your volume up, like we spoke about. I did test this. Like, I was kind of skeptical about keeping my volume this low, because for years I had done 3 sets of 12, 3 exercises per muscle group, like crazy amounts of volume. Not crazy, but definitely a lot more than I used to do. So I did try and push my volume higher. I think initially I trialed at around 10 sets per week per muscle group, but it just didn't work for me. I noticed that when it came time to hit my sessions again, I struggled to progressively overload. I would plateau at certain weights, certain reps, struggle to consistently keep seeing my numbers go up, even though my sleep and nutrition and all were where they'd always been pretty good. So it just didn't work for me. And then when I dropped that volume down slightly, it wasn't anything crazy. Like, going from 6 sets to 10 sets isn't a huge jump, but made a noticeable difference that you wouldn't even think it would. So I would recommend that all individuals play about with their volume, because not everybody's made the same. Not everyone's going to be able to recover from the same amount of volume as other people. Some people may be able to recover from crazy amounts of volume, and then therefore, yeah, push it up. So just see what works for you. I would probably recommend starting at a lower amount and then building up rather than the other way around. I think that's sort of what usually works the best, but no, I would just say try it and see what works. And then in terms of my approach to intensity, I usually stayed 1 rep shy. If you took an average of every single set I did over the course of the last year, I would say on average I stayed 1 rep shy from failure. That doesn't mean I never went to failure at all, because I did, and it's fun too. So sometimes I did go to absolute failure. just for the fun of it, and it didn't make anything. I didn't have any crazy fatigue accumulation that meant I couldn't recover, but I did try and aim for that 1 rep shy mark. Wouldn't really go any further than 2, because at that point it's risky territory, especially if you find it hard to gauge how close you are to failure. Then it can be quite tricky leaving reps in the tank. If you're one of those people, I would probably just say just go to you can't do anymore. Don't go past that. Like, I wouldn't do reps beyond failure. I wouldn't do length and partials. I wouldn't do drop sets, anything like that. Just, if you're not sure, go to failure, leave it there. If you're able to gauge how close you are to failure, ideally 1 rep shy, 2 isn't the end of the world. But yeah, that was sort of my overall approach to both volume and intensity, and I didn't do any drop sets, didn't touch any supersets, no intensifiers, just kept it simple, low volume, relatively high intensity. And yeah, just to briefly touch on supersets, because I don't really think I gave them much discussion time. My issue with supersets isn't really anything to do with fatigue, but more short-term recovery. If you're jumping from exercise to exercise, even if they are like completely different muscle groups, you could be going from like a bench press to a lat pull down. The problem is that if you don't rest in between those exercises, then you're not going to be recovered from a cardiovascular perspective. So if you just rested 3 to 5 minutes in between, realistically you're going to be able to do more reps. So you supersetting them is essentially limiting yourself to the amount of reps that you could do if you just rested the necessary time that it needs. Now, I understand supersets and even drop sets are usually used when time is an issue, and then I'd understand it more. Like, if you've got a time constraint, you've only got a certain amount of time to work out, then okay, you can use supersets, maybe drop sets, I just don't like them, to, you know, make up for that lack of time that you have. But honestly, I think you'd still just be better doing the straight sets that you're able to do and just do a bit less volume, and you can even maybe make up for that volume the next session rather than do supersets and drop sets. I don't think you need to, but I sort of understand why some people may feel they're necessary in certain situations where, like we said, time would be an issue. I just want to put in a quick section about Mike Israetel. Now, you might think he's like one of the biggest voices for the science-based lifting community, because he has millions of subscribers, and fair play to him, he does, but he's been getting a lot of slander online recently and on TikTok, particularly for his techniques and his ideologies behind his training, which I think is so funny. See, when you see the videos of him in his multi-million-pound gym and he's doing elevated push-ups and assisted pull-ups instead of the thousands of pound machines he's got in the background of his videos. It's great. And there's a clip of him being interviewed by Chris Williamson on his podcast, and the thing with Mike Israetel is he talks a lot about the stretch, and if when you're doing chest flies, you bring your arms the whole way back, really get that stretch, and that's what's going to drive muscle growth. You're missing out on gains if you don't have a really slow tempo, focus on the stretch part of the movement. And Chris Williamson asked him, oh, okay, so if you're such a big, if you're such a big fan of this, what happens in that stretch? And Mike Israetel, he's like, yeah, well, we don't actually know. And it's like, well, then why are you peddling this so much if you have no idea what's happening?
If I see you do cable flies and you're stopping here, I'm going to talk to you, and I better hope you have 2 up shoulders. Because if they're totally healthy, I'm going to say go ultra deep for that super big stretch.
What's happening in that deep stretch?
We don't actually know exactly why the stretch stimulates hypertrophy.
But I just thought it was funny. I just wanted to say that he's not really, despite his popularity in general, he's not really a big person in the science-based community. But that video of him on hamstring curl will never get old.